Hi, I'm Owyang, founder and chief catalyst of Crowd Companies, a company I am launching here and now in the next 10 minutes. I'm here to talk about the future of the next 10 years. So let's cue up the slides and get going. The last time I was at leweb, it was 6 months ago, and we were talking about the collaborative economy. And I shared my thesis on how corporations can be involved. So it's a nice homecoming to come back now and talk about how there's going to be a solution for big companies to be part of this market. So the question we're going to ask and answer is your company ready for the next 10 years? Now, in the last 10 years, what we've seen is a big focus on the democratization of media. People created media. People shared media. And we call that social media, social networks. This had radical impacts to organizations and even governments, such as Napster disrupting the media industry, or even WikiLeaks disrupting big governments. Now, if you thought that was disruptive, this next phase, as Paul talked about, the collaborative economy, how people are creating the physical goods, will have far more impacts to society and the world. This is a blast from the past. Was anybody at leweb 9 years ago when it was called LeBlogs? Over there? Back there? This was LeBlogs, and it was focused on media, blogging. And then Loic and Geraldine updated it and talked about it as leweb. And now we're moving into the physical space. Now, to illustrate this change, let's take a look at this graphic. This is the social media age, and we're in it right now. I see many CEOs of companies that work in the social space, Claire from Hearsay and some other folks, Joe from Clout are here. And now we're starting to see that people are using these tools to easily publish, now use the same technologies, mobile, social, apps, to get what they need in the physical world. And we call that the collaborative economy age. They're using the same tools to build the physical world and to share it. So the question is, where will your company and corporation be in the next decade as we see the democratization of the physical world? 6 months ago at London, the theme was the sharing economy. We focused on this and we saw lots of startups. And the big takeaway from everyone is that it's becoming democratized and people are empowered. People are empowered to get the physical world from each other. Even here on stage today, we heard from the CEO of Uber. There's going to be 3D printers rolled out on stage doing some amazing things. People can get what they need from each other. They are empowered. Now, in the last 6 months, we've actually found that things are accelerating. Even since Jim leweb in London, we're seeing the growth of 3D printing. HP announced, Meg herself, that HP will be in the 3D printer market this coming year. That's picking up. And we're also seeing that the sharing economy startups are heavily funded. Uber raised $258 million from Google. Airbnb over 120. We're seeing high degrees of funding into the space. PayPal purchased Braintree, mobile payments platform for Airbnb and Uber for $800 million. Money is moving into the space. And also we're seeing crowdfunding continue to rise. Kickstarter and Indiegogo have been around, but there's thousands of variations. You can take a look at CrowdFundMeet, and they're tracking all of these new forms of crowdfunding. Even the United States government is trying to figure out what can be legal, what cannot be. This is a valid form of how people are getting what they need from each other. And then even alternative currencies, or as somebody talked about, Guy Kawasaki talked about, a protocol. That's absolutely happening. In each of these cases, we're seeing the physical world being democratized. People are creating things by manufacturing and 3D printing. The sharing economy, people are getting things from each other. Crowdfunding, you get money from each other. And Bitcoin, it's democratizing and impacting even governmental currencies. So with that increasing, it's going to be harder for corporations to stay on top of these trends. This is a study recently done, and it looked at the lifespan of big corporations in the S&P. So the longer the bar, like those blue bars, means that's the longer a corporation lists on the S&P 500. And it starts off in some early years, you can see it, and it's moving into the red zone where we're right about now, 2013. You can see that the lifespan is decreasing. Corporations are falling off their lead position. So how will companies stay ahead of this trend when all of these things are accelerating? It's very challenging. So the big question in the collaborative economy where people are empowered, what role do corporations play when people get what they need from each other? What role do they play? Well, it's very simple. The answer is corporations need to make the crowd part of their company. The crowd is going to become part of their company. They're already making things and sharing it. Now you bring it in-house. Let me show you 3 examples of leading corporations that are becoming like crowd companies today. GE, which is one of the leaders, frequency-wise, in the collaborative economy, partnered with Quirky, where the crowd can submit ideas, and a small dedicated team can actually build these products, and then together they take these things to market. GE, Quirky. Next, we're seeing examples of crowdfunding. Try to advance this. Did you know that you can crowdfund in UHaul? They have the Investors Loyalty Club. That's right, you can actually own a part of a truck or the equipment, and on a periodic basis, they give out dividends to the crowd. Now, why would a corporation do crowdfunding? Certainly, most of them have plenty of money. But the reasons why is they want to involve the crowd in a very deep relationship. The reason why corporations, I'm sure there's diversity of funds, that's part of it. The reason why corporations can benefit from crowdfunding is for a shared fate. In fact, this is the highest form of loyalty. We're often taught that repeat sales is the highest form of loyalty. Well, actually, crowdfunding, when the crowd is invested in your products, they're going to buy those products, and they're going to work with you for that long-term period. Crowdfunding is shared fate. That is the highest form of loyalty. I like this example from Ford's Lincoln brand, where they work with the crowd. If you've heard of the community called Custom Made, it's a community of makers. They worked with Lincoln. And if you buy that high-end car, custom-made community of jewelers and artisans will create you matching jewelry to match your car. So the crowd is starting to build their product and that brand experience, tying it back to the Lincoln brand. You can see these examples of these beautiful rings and necklaces tied directly to that car. Now, why do companies want to integrate the crowd into their company? I'll give you 3 distinct reasons and a few examples of what corporations are doing today. The first is to seek purposeful profit. Number 2 is to be efficient with resources. And 3 is to harness crowd innovation. Let's take a look at each of these 3 examples. First, seek purposeful profit. Now, corporations are protected by law to deliver maximum shareholder value. But in this study that we have from Deloitte here, we can find out that people are starting to seek other things beyond this. In 2011, Deloitte conducted this research experiment, and they asked business executives, what is the purpose of profit? Of businesses. And you can see the word cloud was very prominent, profit. This is what senior executives said the purpose is of a business. Now they posed that same question to millennials. And we're in the workforce, and they said, what is the purpose of business? And here's what they said. Notice the difference? Societal development, innovation. Profit is part of there, but also prosperity. So the desires of this younger generation call them perhaps idealistic, or is it the future, or a combination of both? We don't really know. This is what their perceptions are on the roles of corporations. Let me give you an example. Toyota has an interesting program called the 100 Cars for Good program. And they issue over 100 cars to nonprofits over 100 days. And the goal is to try to reach back to people and give back. And it created a lot of interaction online. So they were sharing their brands with other people. Another example is Tom's. This just published about a month ago. This is a very innovative example. So Tom's Shoes, which is known for being focused on societal good, launched a marketplace where they're selling other people's products around them. Take a look at that clear line that talks about, we believe that consumer and business can be more than just profit. So they're selling artisan goods. Over 30 different artisans, makers, are selling their own goods around that Tom brand. So they're tapping into what people want by connecting to the community. They're expanding their brand presence to other different groups. And they're reselling other people's folks, all for the brand promise of social good. Brands are launching marketplaces instead of just selling their own products. Let's take a look at another example. Maximizing resources. Now this is really the core of the sharing economy. And one of my partners that I like to focus on, who's in the Innovation Network, is Lisa Ganske, who's been very generous to share this quote, which makes a lot of sense. She wrote the book, The Mesh, Access to Goods, Services, and Talent Triumphs Over Ownership. And that's really the core tenet of what we saw, even from the CEO of Uber, Travis, sharing the sharing economy and how there's idle town cars available to take you around as you need it. Let's take a look at some examples of what corporations are doing. All right, we have to advance. Okay, B&Q, a retail brand in the UK, launched its own community called Community Marketplace with Street Club. And this is an example of a marketplace and a community where they're encouraging people to share ideas and products in their own neighborhood. In San Francisco, there's a startup that was created called Nextdoor.com that's doing this organically. I guess Craigslist and other types of cities are doing this as well. But now we're seeing that corporations are leading sharing and encouraging this to happen actually in their own marketplaces. Has anybody heard of truckclub? Truckclub is an innovative new startup that's disrupting large retailers. So the way truckclub works is you can actually get a stylist on demand. You share a stylist. So it's just formed in. And you go onto the website, you sign up, and you put in your measurements. And then this stylist understands your needs, and they send you a trunk of clothes. I use the service. And you can pick out these outfits, you can try them on, and then you send back whatever you don't want, and you're billed. It's a little more expensive than you would normally get at a retail store. But it's an example of a mechanical clerk, a term coined by my friend Ethan Holland, and how the crowd is starting to share on-demand stylists. And this is all done from the luxury of your own home. You don't actually even have to leave. Now, coworking is a very common example of what we're seeing out in the startup land. And we're seeing that hotels are moving into this space as well. Meet Marriott's new form of WorkSpring. And WorkSpring, which is in Seattle and Chicago, I visited the Seattle one just a few weeks ago. And you can rent some workspace for you and your team on demand. You get a friendly place to work. Sometimes there's food and there's drinks provided. And you can go out to the lobby after your meetings, have a few alcoholic beverages. So it's an example of big corporations providing co-working on demand and sharing spaces. Co-working by big corporations and hotels. We're also seeing that the W Hotel is also doing some of that as well. Now, the third reason why companies are doing this, that are becoming crowd companies, is they're harnessing limitless sources of crowd innovation. Many companies are looking for new ideas, and they're struggling to get them internally. This is research done by UC Berkeley that found out that corporations, about 78% of them on average, are now focused on outside-in innovation. Outside innovation. And they're trying to get ideas from the crowd, from other places, from schools or from people, from consumers and beyond. Now, the success rate wildly varies, but there's a desire to get more innovation from outside of the crowd. Let's take a look at one great example. You're all familiar with Ganske. The CEO was on the leweb stage for the last few years. And now, did you know that Nordstroms is reselling their goods in their stores? Local artisans can actually put their own products up on stores. And we're seeing even the West Elm is partnered with Ganske to do these things right now. So the crowd is building products that's being resold inside of companies. In this example, Nokia released their STL files, the 3D printer files, for their actual phone cases. And working with the 3D printer community, they said you can design, customize, and print them out as you want. It was an early trial. It was definitely one of the first movers in the space. So there's a lot more opportunities that can be done. But it's an example of how a brand is saying the crowd can actually make the products out there, be part of the innovation, production, manufacturing, and even the supply chain. So the big takeaway from those examples, purposeful profit, being efficient with resources, and limitless crowd innovation, is that brands can be resilient by collaborating with these empowered people. And the goal is for shared value. I show you a lot of examples of what companies can do. But for some companies, they're looking for more. How can they do this on an ongoing basis? So I'm very excited to present to you a brand new company called Crowd Companies. You can go to crowdcompanies.com, and it's a brand council for the collaborative economy, for large corporations that want to be part of the shared economy, make the movement, and co-innovation. Now, a brand council, also called an association or a trade council, is for large corporations to come together, learn from each other, learn from experts like Lisa Ganske, Mark Hatch, Neil Gornflow, and then also to partner with startups. Now, we have a mission, and this is really important. This is why I'm doing this. It's for empowered people and resilient brands to work together and create new business models that we haven't seen before, where they both win for shared value. Here's a screen capture from the website that just went live. These are the founding members, these progressive brands that are part of this council. They want to work with the startups. They want to work with the empowered people to create new forms of value. 24 corporations. Now, startups also win too. We're also announcing an innovation network of startups from the sharing economy and maker movement. I've hand-selected these startups, and they want to work with big corporations to create new forms of business models we've never seen before. The startups don't pay. They do present to the council, but they win as well. So let's close things off with a few summary points. 5 final takeaways. Number 1. Like media was socialized, we're seeing the physical world is also becoming democratized. The last 10 years were about social media. It's available in media everywhere. Now the physical world is being impacted. Number 2, people are empowered to make physical goods and share them instead of buying them in the new. This is an opportunity and disruption for big brands. Number 3, big companies, just like they did in social, need to use these same exact strategies to regain relevancy in the space. Number 4, the corporations that do this and become partners with these empowered people can become resilient. So my thesis is in the next 10 years, the crowd and the companies become one. We might not even be able to tell the difference between an employee and a customer. They're crowdfunding, designing, building, sharing, marketing, supporting products. The crowd and the company become one. So with that, here's my contact info. You can find me at crowdcompanies.com, and I'm Jeremiah Owyang. Thank you so much.